Now, climate change is happening now and affecting developing countries. How is CDKN working with developing countries to address the challenge?
We've been entrusted with £70 million of British and Dutch taxpayers' money to help developing countries most affected by climate change respond to the challenges. Those challenges are opportunities too, so we don't just look at the adaptation challenges but the mitigation opportunities. So for example, we're working with small islands who are hugely dependent on imported diesel for their electricity generation. What are the opportunities to shift to more of a renewable electricity generation structure? Those are sort of the things that where we're working around the policy, and we do this through support directly to those policymakers, but also provision of research to back that up and a number of sort of knowledge management tools. And the fourth area of our work is around, at the international level, around the negotiation support to developing countries to enable them to have a better voice and impact on the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Can you give us a couple of examples of how you're working intensively, either at the country or regional level, with developing countries?
Yeah, we've had a very successful partnership over the first 2 years of our existence with the CARICOM through the Caribbean Climate Change Community Programme, 5Cs, where we've helped them to produce an implementation plan to build their own climate resilience. This is a highly vulnerable set of countries, both their economies, let alone their shorelines affected by sea level rise. These tourist and agriculture dependent economies face a very grim future with the threats of climate change. So their implementation plan was just approved in December by the heads of state of the CARICOM, of that region of 16 states. And it sets a framework for their investments, be it in transport or agriculture or indeed in the tourist sector, to develop and build a better and more sustainable economies. Now we back that up with research, because the stuff that can be done now, there's the so-called low-hanging fruit. For example, building roads back better after flood damage, which is what we've been working with the government of El Salvador on, also in that part of the world. But there are research questions, there are research gaps, how to do this better, where the impact's going to be worse, what are the best geographical information systems that can convey the areas under greatest threat. We're doing that really at multiple levels, working through national and international research expertise, leveraging that expertise to respond to those demands coming from developing countries. We work with the policymakers, and we're also working through the international processes. So we work, for example, with the UNFCCC's process to identify how loss and damages in the future can be articulated and quantified and brought to international attention more strongly. This investment is being made by the British and Dutch governments. What are the results? How is this going to change the realities for poor people in developing countries? That's the kind of exciting but real challenge that we're faced with now.
Does CDKN work with communities, and if so, how?
We're very keen to see our work deliver impacts and results for communities, and we are working with many NGOs and researchers who themselves are working with those communities. There's a whole network which will be supporting them coming together to share their learning and results shortly at an international conference and beyond that. We work with the city of Cartagena, for example, and their city under terrific threat from sea level rise. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce, which is dominated by the tourist sector and other sectors, who really are conscious of the need to build a more resilient tourist industry, which is under threat from extreme events and sea level rise. So they got a real opportunity with an industrial sector. So a lot of exciting work being done, a vast amount of knowledge. How does that deliver change at speed? Now there's a huge and important opportunity through the UN, the international process, to get a global deal in 2015 that can really lock us into a process of reducing the impact of climate change. We don't want to go and live in a world, we don't want our children to live in a world which exceeds 2 degrees centigrade. We've already set that as a dangerous limit, and there's a current risk. The emissions reductions commitments so far will see us go way beyond 2 degrees. So everything needs to be done urgently, including through our contributions between now and 2015, to enable countries to come together to reach a global deal that can drive us towards a more effective future. So an exciting time, lots of resources need to be leveraged, a lot of issues around the public perception of these issues too that we will be making contributions to through sharing some of our messages.